Welcome back. You're watching Business AM. My name is Indira Ganga, standing in for Elijah Charles Simbakage. And to help us carry through the discussion today, we are joined by Ogwango Mugani, intellectual property expert, and CPA Enoch Monari, managing partner, Nyanchoga and Associates. Now, we begin with the big story of the day. President Uhuru Kenyatta has come out to strongly assure Kenyans that the country is in good shape and remains strong and resilient despite the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic globally and locally, while delivering the 2020 State of the Nation address in Parliament. President Kenyatta has also paid special focus on the COVID-19 pandemic as well as the progress made so far with the country's Big Four agenda. Progress or regress? What's your take, Ogwang? Let's begin with you.
Progress or?
Regress.
Regress. I would actually put in another word. Progress, regress, digress, or even regret. And then I will go for regret.
Okay. Defend your argument.
The reason why I'm saying that is, you know, words are not in themselves making any meaning. The president cannot come and slap us with an ambiguous word like the country is in good shape. Define good shape. Are we in good shape at the marketplace? Are we in good shape politically? Are we in good shape academically in our institutions of education? So that word, we are in good shape, is only good for talking points. When you're just having conversations, and people cannot hold you accountable to what you have said, because when president declares his national address, no one ever asks him, what did you mean by we are in good shape? So those are some words that just fill up a speech. But as at now, we are not in good shape.
Okay.
Yes.
Enoch, let me come to you. Everybody is issuing profit warnings and cutting down jobs. Do you think we're in good shape?
Even if we say that we're in bad shape, I think it's not something that we can pass a blame to the president. The president took time yesterday to highlight the achievement that he's so far made under the Jubilee government, and their massive achievement. I mean, when you look at what they're doing in the education sector, what they're doing with the infrastructure, it's very massive. The president took time to take us through every single project that he feels is changing the lives of Kenyans, which is a good thing. But in the hindsight, then we also have to look at the challenges that we still have as Kenyans. We didn't elect President Uhuru Kenyatta to sort out all our challenges. We elected him so that for the period that he was president and he is president, he can be able to move us forward as a nation. And I think that is what he has done so far. So it is incumbent upon us as Kenyans to ensure that as we move to the next phase, we can be able to continue with the projects that the president has started and ensure that there's prosperity in our nation.
We will not get into the politics of what the Jubilee administration has or hasn't done. But Ogwang,
Yes.
what do you think Kenyans were expecting to hear from the president?
I would really wish to disagree with Enoch. It's Enoch or Eric?
Enoch.
Enoch. We didn't elect the president to improve the quality of our lives. Why did we elect the president? We elect the president because he can deliver improvement on quality of living standard. He might not do it directly, but he does it by creating enabling environments through which people interacting within such of these environments will thrive in business and in turn improve quality of life. To that extent, the president has not delivered. So what we want as at now, we want the president to deliver on that which he promised. The president promised, one, among many other things, that he was going to deliver 1 million laptops. 1 million laptops. The object is not in the laptop itself. The object is in the functionality of the laptop, because in the functionality of the laptop, it means that we are upgrading the quality and infrastructure of academia. To that extent, has he delivered? No, he hasn't delivered. So what we really want from the president is the president ought to create enabling environment, not just for him, but for people who can interact within such enabling environment so that I can take responsibility on my own self to improve my quality of life. But you cannot improve quality of life without policy, can you?
Enoch?
I think it's all about how you view a glass with water, whether it's half full or half empty. And that is the difference between the arguments we'll have for and against the achievements of the president so far. I mean, when you look at a country like the US, they have had 45 presidents, and they still face challenges as a nation. And we cannot shy away from the fact that we are a young democracy, and we are growing, and we are actually learning very fast on the things that we want as Kenyans. And we have to give it to the president for what he has managed to achieve. I mean, look at what he did with the Nairobi Commuter Railway. It might have come in too late, but it's something that we can pride ourselves of, that can be able to solve some of the transport challenges that we have in the country. Look at infrastructure. Look at the Likoni Bridge that they are doing. Look at the road network that we have, and so many other things that we take as positives from the time that the president has been our president for the last almost 8 years. So we just need to look for a way we can be able to build on that, instead of blaming him or trying to look for the faults that have happened during his rule, which is common in democracies. We just need to look for a way of viewing things positively and trying to build on what we have, so that we can be able to look back and say, he moved us from point A to B in a positive way, without having to look so much into the negative.
Okay, he's moved us from point A to B, yet Ogwang says the environment is not conducive for us to move from point A to B. The jury is still out. You can talk to us and tell us what your sentiments were on the presidential address yesterday. Now let's move on to the next story, where Kenya has, for the first time since independence, cleared direct loans owed to the United Kingdom, its former colonial master, that has recently shifted how it lends to developing countries. Data from the Treasury indicates that Kenya does not owe Britain as of June, compared to a debt of 35 million shillings in May and 1.4 billion shillings in 2015. The drop in direct loans from the UK emerged in a period when the country opted to offer funds to agencies such as the Department for International Development, DFID, and the World Bank for onward lending to developing nations like Kenya. Now, the easing of UK direct debt to Kenya comes as countries like China have ramped up loans to African countries. Beijing has also used debt for geopolitical influence. Now, the World Bank Group is the leading official creditor to Kenya, with the UK as a significant contributor to these resources. So for every dollar we receive from the World Bank or the IMF, the UK taxpayer funds are included in a significant way. And this begs the question, what does that mean for Kenya when it comes to repaying its debt? Enoch, let's start with you.
I think sometimes it sounds funny that I can be happy that I don't owe person X, whereas I've actually transferred my loans to person Y, and it's not something that we should be proud as Kenyans, that the fact that we've almost cleared loans owed directly to the UK. I mean, when you look at the direction that we've taken as a nation since 2002, when Kibaki became president, we decided to look to the east, and the European countries and even the US have been complaining a lot on the fact that we've not been engaging them on getting support, especially through loans. And one of the reasons is that the European countries and America, of course, the loans that they give come in with so much attached to it. And Uhuru and Kibaki felt that that is not the direction they wanted to take. They wanted easy money that they can be able to access, and China came in handy to give us that money. So as much as we don't owe so much to the UK, as much as the debt situation with the World Bank is also very low, we owe so much money to the East. We owe so much money to China. And that is what should actually worry us as a Kenyan, that when you look at our debt situation, it is almost hitting 7 trillion, which is really a lot of money. So I really don't want to say that I'm proud that we don't owe the UK. I'm just saying that our debt situation is still really, really bad. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things that we are struggling with as a nation that actually needs to be addressed, because it's not something that we can really be proud of, as especially the young generation who are really struggling to do business in this country.
Okay, we'll come back to our debt management skills and our debt levels in a while. But Ogwang, picking up from what Enoch has said, one might say that we are leaning towards the East because the regulations are not very tight when it comes to the money and how you're going to use it. Because some of these people, when the World Bank gives you money, they give you a cheaper rate, but the rules are very stringent. You cannot squander that money and get away with it because they want to know how you'll spend it. China will give you money, do as you please for as long as you'll pay me back.
Okay. Another thing, this is a very technical question. It is technical because none of us in this platform is privy to what informs our borrowing policy as a country. To that extent, I don't know. Uhuru will always slap us with some of these words. We are borrowing for infrastructural projects. What does that mean? Infrastructure, does it mean road network? Does infrastructure equally mean electricity connectivity? What is infrastructural development? There is actually a time whereby they were launching an SGR that went somewhere to is it this place, Ngong, right? But the place whereby it went up to Ngong, it's not even accessible by the people living around that place. So the people said, we will not use it. We are going back to Matatu. So what informs our foreign policy? We don't know. What informs our borrowing policy? We don't know. What actually comes out of this story that is actually is worth commending is that there is a lot of money in Kenya. And if that money can be put into good use, we have sufficient money within circulation in our infrastructure of economic transaction that we can sustain our own budget. So it calls for having a level of judicious management to resources. Is cash the only form of resource that we need? No, it's not the only form of resource. Cash is only a form of resource to an individual who lacks capacity to unlock other aspects of dormant resources. So if you ask me as at now, we are at a point whereby we are gravitating at catch-22. If you ask me, this route that we are going actually qualifies that there is enough money, that the only problem we have with people who are at points of decision making is we are not acting in the best interest of the people. If you may allow me, just a few days ago, 3 days actually, the DPP says that in 3 years we have stolen 226 billion shillings. That is ridiculous. So there is enough money in circulation, there is enough cash in people's hands that we can actually look at what is important as a people in this time in our civilization and what is not important. If you ask me, some of these infrastructural projects are not important. If you ask me, the commuter rail, let me ask you, in an economy of 8 million people, if you can only ferry even less than 1,000 people in a day, have you done anything? No, you haven't done anything. Yes, sir.
Hey, okay, this is quite a tough stand Ogwang is taking, but Enoch, I want to come to you. The Senate raised the debt ceiling to about 9 trillion. The Ministry of Treasury, Ukur Yatani, indicated that we intend to borrow another 1 trillion to facilitate our budget. Let's just talk about this borrowing culture and the borrowing trend. And as Ogwang has said, when we borrow, we make it look like we're borrowing for something substantial. But when it comes to the repayment, we are accruing so much debt vis-a-vis our GDP. And repayment at one point is going to be difficult because look at what COVID has done to the economy. It's going to take 3 to 5 years to be able to recover fully. And some of these people, they'll still expect us to pay back their money. So where do we go from here?
I think what is eating us now is that we've been overambitious before. When you look at when Uhuru took over when Kibaki took over in 2002, our national budget was around 250 billion shillings. Right now, it's almost eating 3.5 trillion shillings, and it tells you that since 2013, we became so much excited about having a big budget, about spending so much, that we missed the basics on exactly what the Kenyans needed to be done. And that budget is the one that is eating us, because from where Ukur is seated, he must be able to find a way of financing the budget. And he cannot come up with a lower budget. Remember, we've discussed this before, that we wish the CS Treasury and the President could take more of a reset and we relook at our budget making process. And we try and address the needs of the Kenyans without having to look at this every year that we must do an incremental budget. So if we're only collecting 1.7 trillion through KRA, we must be able to look for a way of bridging the gap. And the only way we can be able to bridge that gap is through local borrowings, and of course now borrowing from the East and the other countries. And that is exactly what is hurting this nation. And we just hope that at the end of the day, we can be able to sit down and try and analyze the situation as it is and look where we lost the game, because we really have lost the game. We've borrowed, as the panelists have said, we've borrowed so much and invested in projects that sometimes you sit and wonder whether we really need those projects. I mean, if those monies were put into other good use, we could be seeing more benefits as Kenyans. So the situation is that it's very bleak. The CS Treasury has no option really than to look for a way of borrowing so that it can be able to bridge the budget gap. Otherwise, we will be having cases whereby they cannot be able to finance some of the ongoing projects, and the ambitious Big Four agenda that the president has had for the last 1 year or two that actually needs huge finances.
Ogongo, what's holding us back from reducing our budget to about 1.2 trillion if KRA is collecting 1.7?
One, we have huge appetites, right? We have huge infrastructures that we are managing. Our wage bill is running wild, right? Our wage bill is actually running as though it's on steroids, wild. We need to cut at some point. And at some point, we need to ask ourselves, is this head too big for the body, right? There is this procedure they have in medicine. If your head, for some strange reason, decides to start swelling, guess what? You go for surgery. We don't give you more food to let the head swell further. What is happening in our context, and I'm sorry for using that analogy, if the head is swelling, and the head is swelling at a rate that is higher than how the body is growing. To that extent, at some point, we will need and tell ourselves, can we carry this head? No, we can't carry this head. So it's better, maybe we cut your head so that we can get something smaller. I don't mean that, but as at now, we need to do some surgeries somewhere. We need to let go of certain offices. We need to let go of certain things that we have.
Go ahead.
That is where we are.
Okay, that's like a really strange analogy there. So what do we cut?
We need to cut unnecessary expenditures that we have as a people. Let me ask you, there's a time that we wasted 300 billion doing something called the Turkana something windmill something.
Yes.
That project has stalled. That project has stalled. There's a time that Uhuru, the government actually came and said, hey, you guys want to put a railway that will be running on fire, on electricity. Actually, the budget for this SGR was meant to run on electricity, but it's not running on electricity. So we are not sincere, we are not genuine, we are lying. Okay. To the point whereby we can say as a people, and I like what Enoka said, that we need to sit down. Guess what? We are always sitting down. At some point, we need to come and say, the buck stops with the president. It's either you don't know what you're doing, or the people around you are misinforming you. To that extent, then what do we need to dial back as a people? Do we need this number of representation, for instance? No, we don't need this number of representation. Why? We are only duplicating the same roles. To that extent, what other avenues can we have surgical procedures in ensuring that even our debt, our recycling expenditures can actually be maintained? Someone once, the other day, someone asked me, the US has been 200 plus years. Their democracy is 200 plus years old, right? But their representation has been maintained all through the time. Kenya is less than 50 years immature in our democracy, but guess what? Everyone wants a representative. I'm also wanting to ask for someone to represent me solely in the National Assembly. That one is not feasible. As a people, we need to come to a point whereby we are saying, whatever we are advancing, do we need 9+ Stadia that they promised. No, we don't need 9+ Stadia. Do we need this? Who needs Big Four agenda? If you was to ask me, who need Big Four agenda? We are going for Big Four agenda and we have not even attained Vision 2030. So to that extent, we are misdirecting resources on something that is foundational and on something to something that is actually movable. So the president is leading us amok. The president is misleading us. If the president had the good for the people, for the nation, the president ought to have stayed on Vision 2030. This thing, let me tell you, Uhuru has come up with a Big Four agenda. The person who is coming after him will come up with another ridiculous agenda. So at the end of the day, we will have white elephant projects. Yes.
Enoch, as we wind up on this topic, where do we put our money as a country beyond presidencies? I know India decided back in the 80s and 70s that they will have the Big Five, and health was one of the issues that they focused on. And today is one of the leading health tourism destinations in the world. Kenya, where we are as a democracy and as an economy and as a lower middle income country, where do we need to put our money so that it can translate as value to our people, as jobs, as food on their tables?
You know, we became so united and we started comparing ourselves with first world countries, and we forgot that what drives this country is agriculture. That is where we got it wrong. And we've been trying to wrestle and fight around with things that are beyond our reach at this moment. So for me, I still strongly believe that if you can be able to go back to investing in research so that we can be able to support the projects that we have within agriculture, then we can also invest in manufacturing, because that is still the biggest challenge we have. We actually import a lot. We've had the country coming up with industrial zones and all those things, but the kind of investment that is put in those industrial zones is not enough to actually excite investors. So if we can be able to focus on research, especially around agriculture, and we look for a way of supporting the manufacturing sector, encouraging direct investments in manufacturing, and we also support young businesses, SMEs, I can tell you we will be able to go far as a country if we focused on those three very key areas for this economy.
Great. Now let's look at our last story, which is with regards to KEMSA, and they're saying they've run out of cash to procure, as the 6.34 billion cash was tied up in stock that it can't sell in the wake of the COVID-19 procurement scandal. Some of its funds have been frozen, and also with a new rule that allows counties and the national government to procure from whoever sells it cheaply, they are unable to dispense all the equipment that they have in their jurisdiction. Enoch, let me begin with you. Does KEMSA have a case for pleading for more money?
No, they have. Based on what has happened for the last especially since March, whatever that has happened actually makes it difficult for them to actually come out and request for more funds, because whatever monies that they actually accessed, we know we lost a lot of money through this purchase of PPEs, which was unnecessary considering the situation that we were in as a country. So if we can be able to do direct procurement through by the counties, then we actually don't need KEMSA. I don't know why the government, in its wisdom, of course, with the interest of controlling the counties, decided that counties must buy from KEMSA, that we centralize the purchase of medicine and all those things through KEMSA. If the only way we can be able to get value for money is to actually allow the counties to directly procure, so that we can be able to see which count progresses better. Because the intentions was good with KEMSA, but the results have been so devastating. They have ended up with things that they don't need, that they can be able to sell. People took advantage, the cartels took advantage of KEMSA and the funds that we were receiving for COVID and ran away with all the money. So I really don't think that at this moment, we may even want to sit on a table with KEMSA to discuss whether they actually need to get more funding for PPEs.
Mm-hmm. Ogwang, KEMSA insisted on buying medical PPE very expensively, and they also insist on selling it at the very price that they bought. And even the CS of Health has pleaded with them and said, please sell it at current market value, because very soon, right now there are masks that go for 10 shillings.
Sure.
Very soon, masks will start go for 5 shillings.
Sure.
So the earlier they offset, the better, but they're still holding on to that stock.
Okay.
What does this say about the organization of this institution, its mandate, and how it's dispensing its duties?
The hardest thing to legislate is to legislate human morals. You cannot legislate someone who has a tendency or a proclivity for stealing. It's the hardest, you know. I can only say, if you do this, we will define that as theft. But guess what? We have done that already. These guys are stealing. These guys are robbing. It doesn't make sense. You go procure something at a tune of 6.4 billion shillings, and then you come back and say, oh, you guys, where do I take all these things? If you had thought of that and that's what we are saying, what informs our decision-making processes as a people at public institution level? What informs that? Because at the end of the day, we have institutions that are genuine, institutions that are meant to deliver. A point of departure between what I stand for and what Enoch is proposing, I wouldn't want us for every county to go their own route. That one will be outside the spirit of the Constitution. We need equitable, and we need equitable and uniform development at county level. Is it on health? Yes. We need something that will ensure that we have the same basic standard. There are cantankerous counties that will actually go and get their PPEs from ridiculous countries, right? So we need that aspect of standardization. That aspect of standardization at a point of policy level must only be achieved, can only be achieved by a state run institution. KEMSA is actually a parastatal within the Ministry of Health. So to that extent, they're dispensing that mandate. But to the point whereby we allowed individuals, government never procures anything alone. That is a lie. Government always goes through instrumentation of agencies. But the problem is the instrumentation of agencies are not governed by good conscience. So we have ridiculous people with cantankerous characters who will always look at the loopholes. Some of these people actually put in place very temporary situations so as to enable them to either import. Let me ask, in Nairobi today, you walk on the streets of Nairobi, you will not miss any profession under the sun. In 2020, do we still need to import our basic medical sustenance? Do we still need to? So as a point, what would have happened if that 6.4 something billion, if someone who was right thinking said, hey, you guys, why don't we set up an industry that will supply us with XYZ? Why don't we do this? Why? Because they will not do that, because to the extent they do that, it will deny them the opportunity for them to loot. The basic question is, we have institutions that are well-meaning, but those institutions are being ran by thieves and looters.
Well, we are almost coming to a close of this session. Enoch, I only have 30 seconds on my clock. I want to find out from you. It's now November. We have a month to December, to the end of 2020. How do you think we'll close this year looking like economically?
I think we had this discussion with Simba, and what we agreed actually is that we wish each other Merry Christmas, and we look forward to 2021, because there's nothing really that we expect to happen between now and December, considering the situation that we've been as a country for the last 8 months. I think everyone really wants to end this year so that we can start another year on a clean slate, and just hope that things can be able to change for the better. Our kids can go back to school, and we can also have another opportunity to be able to reflect and see actually what we need as a nation for the coming year 2021 and 2022. And of course 2021 will also be a political year, so there will be a lot of activity in this country, and that will mean actually another slowdown in the economy, because our politicians, who we rely so much on, will be focusing their energies elsewhere as they seek re-election in 2022. So Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Omuga. We'll see you in 2021.
Okay, Omuga, your 30 seconds. We can hope and wish each other Merry Christmas, but the reality is people are losing jobs, companies are shutting down, and the numbers of COVID are rising. How do we brace for impact this last 2 months of the year?
It is God for us all and everyone for themselves. It's me as an it's me as an individual to ask myself, what is in the best interest of my practice, right? And whatever is in the best interest of my practice, is it legal? Is it ethical? So at the end of the day, I like what Eneko had said earlier. It is us to begin asking ourselves at an individual level, what will make me go ahead? If it's getting a new skill, get a new skill.
Okay.
And then let's get ahead. Yes.
Ogwang and Enoch, thank you for making time.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's where we leave our economic review. Just before I wish you a Merry Christmas, we want to take a short breather. When we come back, we'll be having a conversation with the Kenya Bureau of Standards. Stay with Metropole TV.